Hi, today from Black Forest. I will tell you today 3 myths about Bitcoin. I very often encounter statements about Bitcoin, about cryptocurrencies from experts on YouTube, also in the comments that promulgate, that somehow multiply these myths, but in reality they are just very often repeated lies. Which myths I am talking about, you will find out in the next part. Three myths about Bitcoin. Very often I see on internet from the most acknowledged experts on cryptocurrencies, on Bitcoin, repeating these statements, and I realize they are just myths. They are not as true as they would like them to be. I am myself a mathematician and I have studied cryptology, so I know a little bit what I'm talking about. Let's see the first myth. The first myth is that Bitcoin doesn't need intermediaries, that the transactions in the Bitcoin network are peer-to-peer. So if you transact with somebody, it is as if you would be giving him cash, coins or paper money from hand to hand. But this is bullshit. This is apparently not true in the Bitcoin network. Why? Because you are not able to transact with anybody in the Bitcoin network without the help of miners. Miners are the people or the institutions who include your transaction in the ledger, in the Bitcoin ledger, in the Bitcoin blocks. And without them, no transaction can be included or doesn't take place. So you need always miners in Bitcoin that include your transactions. Even if you are a miner yourself, you can't include your transaction yourself because you are just a minuscule part of the entire network, and there are thousands and thousands of other miners in the network. And whose block will be at the end included in the blockchain is a question of probability. And it is a very extremely small probability that it will be your block that will be included in the blockchain. So even if you are a miner yourself, you can't ensure, you can enforce that your transaction will be included in the block or in the blockchain at all. So you always need a cooperation of the majority of miners if you want to make sure that your transaction will be included. So you need these intermediaries. Miners are the intermediaries in the Bitcoin networks. They play the role, you could say, of banks who take your transactions and somehow make them validate your transaction and make your transaction happen. So this was the first myth. And the second myth is that Bitcoin is uncensorable. This is apparently not true. Why? Because coming from the previous point, you see, you need miners to include your transaction in the block. And if miners decide, let's say for now, all the miners decide that they will censor your transactions, that they will not allow a transaction from a certain address or to a certain address or a transaction of a certain type or maybe amount, they will not allow these transactions to be included in blocks. They don't include them in blocks, then these transactions will never appear in the ledger, in the blockchain, and they will never officially take place. And then you would say, okay, but what is the probability that every miner, I will find a miner who will include my transaction or whatever, a friend of mine, or maybe I can include it myself. But no, you have to realize that miners don't operate by themselves. They are united in so-called mining pools that mine together and share, so to say, the probability to hit the resolution of a block, and then they of course share the reward for this block. And they are, I don't know the statistics right now, but 2 or 3 huge mining pools that altogether unite over 50% of mining power, and that means that they actually can enforce their policy upon the others, because they could say, we censor this type of transactions, or we censor transactions from those addresses, or we censor transactions to those addresses. We don't include them in the blocks. And if you are a miner and if you include these in the blocks, then we will censor you. And then you lose out as a miner because you are in a minority, and your transactions will not be included in most cases in the blockchain. So that's why they have a huge influence on the policy across the network if they cooperate, and if they agree to not include certain transactions, to censor certain transactions from certain people or to certain people, then these transactions just will be censored. So this is a myth that Bitcoin is uncensorable. This was the second myth. And the third myth is that hardware wallets are safe. And you can see that they are not safe for most people. First of all, of course, if they are hacks, if the hacker has access to your hardware wallet, a direct physical access, they can be hacked. But let's assume the hacker doesn't have access to your wallet. The hacker can still damage your funds by hacking the software on your computer that communicates with the wallet, because what you see and what you confirm on your hardware wallet is the transaction amount and the receiver address of the transaction, but you don't see the fees on your wallet, on your hardware wallet. So the attacker, the hacker, could manipulate your software on, let's say, in your browser or in your computer that communicates with the hardware wallet to actually show you a low transaction fee, but in reality would charge you a very high transaction fee. You confirm that transaction because the fee isn't being shown on your wallet, and then you will be charged an extremely high transaction. And it happened already in Ethereum network that people confirm transactions, that they set off transactions with small amounts, but with a fee of $1 million or $2 million, and it happened already. And we don't know if it was the hacker, but generally this attack vector exists. And then additionally, if you have a hardware wallet, you need to back up the hardware wallet, of course, with a seed, and you have to note down the seed somewhere. Some people don't back up the wallet at all, and they are, of course, in danger of losing all the funds on the wallets. And even those who back the wallets up, they don't realize that this is another security risk, because somebody can, let's say, take a picture of your seed without you even noticing it. At some point, just recreate the wallet and have access to your wallet and just take over your funds. So you have to additionally secure that seed by encrypting it or maybe dividing it up. There are several methods to do that, but most people don't realize this problem at all. And even if they realize the problem, they don't take these measures to secure the seed. So this is the third myths that I wanted to share with you. I'm sure there are much more myths that circulate in the web, on internet, on YouTube, and I would like to invite you to share these myths in the comments, to share your opinions also about this, the myths that I shared with you. As you know, I am a great supporter of Bitcoin, of cryptocurrencies, but I am not blind to disadvantages of, or maybe weaknesses of this technology, and for sure I am not going to circulate, to promulgate myths and lies about that technology on internet. I just want to share my objections publicly, and I wonder what your opinion about these objections is, about these myths. And so this is a great opportunity for crypto supporters and for crypto haters for maybe criticism. In the comments, I invite you to leave a comment. If you like that video, give me a thumb up. If not, of course, thumb down. Subscribe if you haven't. Share this video with your loved ones, with your friends. One day they will thank you for that. I talk here a lot about cryptocurrencies, about money, about economy, about how the best entrepreneurs in the world think and act, how the self-made billionaires in our world think and act. I talk also about doing great, impossible things in your life and business. So if you like this video, you will certainly like my other videos. I invite you to watch them. That's it for today from Black Forest. I wish you a fantastic day. Let's do something extraordinary today.